I have been playing drums for almost 30 years, and I got good at drums because I practiced. And what better way to practice than with some practice pads? As you can see, I have collected quite a few of them. Today I will be playing on every single practice pad that I have and giving my honest review and opinion in this non-sponsored video, so that you can make an informed decision on what your next practice pad purchase will be. We're going to start with the snare drum pads, and we're going to go in order from the cheapest pad all the way to the most expensive pad, starting with yes, the good old mouse pad. Not only a good tool for using your computer, but also potentially a practice pad for your drumming. Although I am more of a directional pad kind of person, I still see some benefits in the mouse pad. One is that it's really, really cheap, and you probably have at least one in your house already. So yeah, this will work as a practice pad for the financially challenged drummer. So the thing with the mouse pad is you are limited to the surface that you have available. So the mouse pad works kind of well on like a very sturdy wooden surface, but I also have a, kind of crappy, flimsy plastic surface here, and it's a very different feel when using this on here. Yeah, it's like night and day. There's a lot of rebound on the wooden table. Very little rebound. Is also insanely loud on the plastic table. So okay, we got a lot of practice pads to cover, and I do want to rank them in some kind of order, so I came up with this scoring system here. It's kind of elaborate, but well, it wouldn't be an EMCProductions video if we didn't rank and rate things that aren't meant to be ranked and rated. 55% of this score is based upon how realistic the pad feels compared to an actual snare drum. Now, there is an actual way to measure this, okay? Jake Holt, who is a aerospace engineering student, he did a research project to accurately determine which practice pads felt closest to a real drum, and he used all kinds of scientific measurements and calculations and machinery and stuff. And well, I don't have the science chops to do all that. However, I do have a bunch of years of experience drumming, so I just kind of put all my pads around and played them and see how they felt next to a snare drum. And they each get a score of 0 to 100, 0 feeling absolutely nothing like a drum at all, and 100 feeling exactly like a drum. And the mouse pad falls pretty much directly in the middle. I gave it a 53 out of 100. 25% of the score is the volume of the practice pad. And I used a decibel reader app to determine the volume at 4 different heights: 3 inches, 9 inches, 15 inches, and a 15-inch shot. And then I made this formula up to determine the score out of 100 to give each one of these a rating. And the mouse pad did a little better with this score, actually. We got a very nice 69.6 points for volume. 15% of the score is the price of the practice pad, and I made a formula to convert this into a score of 0 to 100. For the snare drum pads, if it's $25, you get 100 points because it's really cheap. And if it's $150, then you get 0 points because that's really expensive. And there's also bonuses and penalties if you go over or under that. And the mouse pad here got some bonus points in the price range because it's real cheap. And the last 5% is the weight of the drum pad. How heavy is it? Is it obnoxiously heavy, or is it super light and easier to carry around? And once again, I came up with a formula to score it out of 0 to 100. The mouse pad is nothing, super light, gets 100 points plus some bonuses. So yeah, we got some bonuses for all those, and then there's an additional 5-point penalty for inconvenience. Because like all these other practice pads, you can just, take it and put it on your lap and play, but the mouse pad, you need like a thing to put it on. So you won't be able to just, practice this wherever you are. So I think that's pretty inconvenient there, mouse pad. All right, you gotta get it together. So the final score for the mouse pad is 63.510. Yeah, we're getting real exact with these measurements here. Yeah, these things are pretty cool here. The Rim Riser stick donuts. They come in a packet of 4, so you actually get 2 pairs for 2 sets of sticks. So yeah, they just go right on over top of the bead. Real easy, just like that, and then you can play on any surface. Yeah, so I don't think these things are actually, you know, marketed as being practice pads. They're more for like, you know, a mallet effect on a drum set. Like if I were to go up to the cymbal, that's the intended use, but I like to use them as a practice pad as well. So yeah, kind of similar problems as like the mouse pad has. You're basically limited to what surface you're playing on, so it feels good on a sturdy surface. Feels not as good on a less sturdy surface. But they're obviously very, you know, convenient and lightweight. It's a little piece of foam. It weighs nothing. And it, of course, got a perfect score in the weight and the price, along with some bonuses in both of those fields. And unfortunately, it gets an inconvenience penalty of -2.5, just because sometimes there might not be a, you know, a sturdy, solid surface around you to drum on. And yeah, I kind of tanked these a little bit in realistic feel, just because it really doesn't feel like a drum very much at all. It's more close to like how it feels drumming on a pillow. There is not too much rebound. You gotta really muscle it in and stroke it out, which that might be a good thing depending on what you're looking for. You know, you gotta, you know, really build the chops in order to get some good quality double stroke rolls with these guys. So with a score of 52.525, the Stick Donuts are sitting in second place right now. The Remo Putty Pad, probably the most fun pad to play with. Yeah, it's like silly putty. You spread it out and you can slam it down on the table and you have a practice pad, just like that. Let's stick it down a little more. Sometimes it doesn't like to stick. That's the problem with this. All right, there we go. Cool. So I actually have 2 of these putty pads. It's interesting. The containers here, they're printed differently, like the labels on them. I guess they revamped it at some point. So let's take our second one out and we can make a second drum, basically. Maybe I should get 5 of these and make a tenor putty pad. Ooh, that would be interesting. So yeah, I've noticed the putty pad, it doesn't like to stick to plastic. It's gonna come up pretty easily on this table. The wood, it stays down a little bit better. Yeah, so similar to the other 2 products, you're limited to what you have available in order to practice on. Like, you need a solid surface, which unfortunately might not always be there. But, well, honestly, if you do have like a good wooden surface, this feels pretty darn good on here. Yeah, that's like honestly pretty realistic to what a drum feels like. That one's not at all. Yeah, so the putty pad, I scored it pretty high in realistic feel, assuming you have a good surface. I couldn't score it any higher because of, you know, if it's on a crappy surface, it won't be that good. The volume is okay, price and weight are both perfect with some bonus points. It also receives an inconvenience penalty of -5 because you're limited to, you know, having a surface, and also you gotta set it up on the surface in order to play it. But it gets a fun bonus of 1. Because dude, it's just so fun to mess around with all this. Like, look how much fun I'm having. I have like a drum circle, but I don't want to hit in the drum. I want to hit only the rim. The putty pad is now sitting in first place. Ooh, let's go. The Eastar Pad. It has an interesting shape to it. It kind of looks like the Nickelodeon symbol a little bit. So this is our first pad that features a rim on it, and every pad that has a rim I give a bonus 1 point, because rims are nice to have. However, the problem with this pad is that you can only get it when you also get the Glockenspiel kit. Like, there's no way to order just the pad by itself. That hits it with a huge penalty for unavailability. I give it minus 7.5. But I did find some dude on eBay selling just his pad for 18 bucks, so that's the price I'm going with. So on the back of the pad, you can see there's a little screw hole here, and that means it can go into a cymbal stand, so you can just twist it onto the top like that. I am using a snare stand here because that's a little bit easier to do. And yeah, this pad scored really poorly in the volume test because it is really freaking loud. Yeah, it's like kind of obnoxiously loud. It's not a very pleasant sound, although it does feel pretty good, to be honest. Some of the drum pads we're reviewing, they're not meant to, you know, specifically mimic a marching snare. This one included. This is more to mimic like a concert snare drum or a drum set snare, because it's coming with a beginner bell set. So most beginner percussionists don't really start on marching snare too often. So that makes sense that this would have a more concert-like feel to it, and I think it does a pretty good job. Overall, the Eastar Pad, it does not score too badly here. We got a 67.910, putting it in second place. The Perca practice pad is one of a few pads we're doing today that I made a whole video on. They sent me this pad for free with an affiliate link, and unfortunately I don't think this company exists anymore. Because yeah, I can't find their website anywhere, and also my affiliate link, it doesn't go anyplace. Yeah, big sad. So yeah, right away we're getting hit with a fat penalty for unavailability, minus 10 points, because you literally can't get it. Honestly, maybe the pad should get disqualified if you can't buy them. I don't know. The scoring system is made up and doesn't matter. Hopefully you're listening to the words I'm saying. But yeah, it kind of sucks that this pad isn't made anymore, because I think it feels great. And yeah, for only $19.95, it's crazy that it was sold this cheap. Maybe that's why it doesn't exist anymore, honestly. So I remember when I made the review video, this pad is advertised as double-sided, and I mean, yeah, there's two sides to it, although the bottom side, I don't know that this side is like actually designed to be drummed on. Yeah, it's just this little thin piece of padding here, and it's getting all kind of dented and scuffed up because I drummed on it a lot in the review video. So I honestly only consider this a one-sided pad, and it's fine. It doesn't need to be two-sided. One side, as long as it's a good quality, then that's good enough for me, I think. Yeah, this pad performed really well in almost all of the tests, especially in volume. It's one of the quietest pads I have. I gave it a 92.1 according to the formula I came up with. And even with the 10-point penalty, it is still sitting in first place right now with a 76.625. This is one of two Donner practice pads we will be reviewing. They don't give their pads names, so this is the Donner Blue, and later on we're doing the Donner Black. I also have a Donner Gray. This was the same pad as this, just the smaller version, same exact thing. And this is another option for a very inexpensive pad. Donner is pretty good at that. And yeah, I do think this pad still feels pretty good. It scored sort of mid, a 63 out of 100, but it did quite well in all the other categories. So yeah, this pad ended up scoring pretty high with a bonus for the price being as cheap as it is, only $19.99. And I also gave it an extra 1/10 of a point for the color/design. That is because there are a few different color options when you're purchasing your Donner practice pad, so I figure that should get a little reward, you know, really customized to your personal tastes. And I do actually like these pads quite a bit. They have a pretty sturdy wooden design here. It kind of reminds me of like the old RealFeel pads, which we'll be getting to those in a little bit. And yeah, the top side is the gum rubber, and then the other side it has a little foam padding so you can put it on a table or wherever and it won't slide around. Pretty decent pad overall. Got a score of 72.636, putting it in third place. The Ahead Stick-On Pad can stick to just about any surface. It's kind of like the Putty Pad, except there's less setup. You just, you know, plop it down. And just like most products that have like adhesive strips, you can restore the stickiness of it by just running some warm water over it, get it back to its full sticky potential. So I really do like the feel of this pad when it's on a good solid surface. It's pretty similar to that of a drum, which is why it scored pretty high in the realistic feel category. Although, once again, just like the other ones that you gotta put on a surface, it depends on the surface. And this one also gets some bonus points for being really cheap and really, really lightweight, although it does receive a penalty for inconvenience because you need a surface, totaling with a final score of 72.238. We have the Ahead Wicked Chops practice pad. It is this little tiny dude and it goes into a cymbal stand. It's got the screw at the bottom. You screw it right in, just like I did the opposite of, to take it off. So as you probably gathered from this, the purpose of this pad is to build on playing zone accuracy. It is so small and very difficult to play things with this kind of precision. It's a cool concept. I mean, any of you drummers who have like tried to drum on like a soda bottle cap, yeah, it's definitely a challenge to get this accurate with it. Although I kind of wish it was just a little bit bigger. I mean, this kind of zone accuracy, it's like there is no room for error at all. Like literally the beads of my sticks in set position are taking up almost the whole pad already. I find it interesting they call this the Wicked Chops. I feel like it should be called like the Wicked Zones, because when you're chopping out, I can't really chop on this because I'm like too afraid of missing the playing zone. I only do like a little 3-inch. You also got to be a little bit careful when you're playing in traditional grip, especially if you're trying to do some 15-inch notes, because if you miss the pad, then the stick just like slams into the cuticle of your ring finger, which is kind of painful. I'm risking my life out here for you guys. I'm risking my cuticle. Maybe I just stink and need to get better at my zones. That's probably what it is. I gotta keep working. In terms of like the actual feel of this rubber, I think it does feel quite realistic. But I do have it a little bit lower for realistic feel, 65 points out of 100, because it is not really realistic to have this kind of zone accuracy. But you can always try for perfection. I think that's a good idea. It scored pretty high in all the other categories, as well as a few bonuses for being really light. It will get an inconvenience penalty of -5 because, I mean, you can't just like take this and put it somewhere. It'll be a little awkward. I would not want to put this between my legs and play on it because you would hit yourself in the nutsack. So you're pretty much limited to when you have a cymbal stand around to when you can use this. It gets a 1-point educational bonus, and I'm doing that for any pad that like works on a specific thing. This one obviously specifically works on your zone accuracy. But that's negated by the -1-point penalty for pain, because yeah, my cuticle doesn't feel good after playing on this. However, I certainly appreciate the concept. I need to get working on my zone chops. But for now, the score is a 75.935, 2nd place. 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 Oh, let's go. My first practice pad in my whole life. 2003 was when I bought this. Some of you weren't even alive yet when I was out there playing on this thing. Oh boy. The Remo Silent Stroke. It has a real Remo drum head on it for a realistic feel. It's also got a rim, which it'll get the bonus for. On the back, we have just a little ring of foam padding. Oh, I wrote my name on it so I didn't lose it when I brought it into middle school. And it also has the little mount for a cymbal stand if you want to go that route. Now, they say this pad is tunable, which it is. You would need a screwdriver. However, it can only be tuned to an extent, right? If you just crank on these too much, then that just like warps the plastic. And this is another pad that is meant to more resemble that of a drum set or a concert snare, not really a marching snare. And I think it does have a realistic feel to that, so it scored pretty decently in that regard. So I have here the 8-inch version of this pad. It comes in a bunch of different sizes, and you can actually get an entire drum set of just this practice pad. And now the only area where this pad is kind of not doing well is the volume. This is it's a pretty loud pad. Yeah, I remember on the marching band bus, my freshman year of high school, I brought this pad on there, and just everybody got real annoyed real quick. And I was highly encouraged to buy a quieter pad. Other than that, it's still a very solid pad, putting it in second place. This pad just makes me hungry for more practicing. That was super lame. RCP has quite a lot of very cool designs to choose from, and they will get a 2-point design and color bonus for that. I, of course, went with the pepperoni pizza, and a little side effect of this pad is you can also work on your playing zones, like trying to drum inside of the pepperoni. So this pad has scored really, really well just all across the board. I mean, it's a very good feel. It's really, really quiet, one of the quietest pads, and it's really, really cheap. And it also gets a bonus for being a 2-sided pad, right? You got the pizza, or if you're getting too hungry, then you can just drum on the other side, which is just a plain black padded surface. Yeah, the underside of the pad has it's a little bit louder, but also it's a little bit less bouncy. So if you want to work on your chops a little more, you can go on the non-pizza side. The Pizza Pad is in first place by a mile. Oh man, that's a big spread so far. That's a 90.625. So yes, here is the other Donner practice pad that doesn't have a name. And as you probably heard, this one has some snare beads on the inside of it, giving it a more realistic sound, which is good when you're trying to film videos as your career. So it'll get an extra point for the beads, it gets an extra point for the rim. This is an interesting rim. It has a little cutout here that you can place your sticks down and they won't roll and fall off of the pad. So that's always good, that's nice and convenient. And overall, I like the feel of the pad. I gave it an 84. Don't sleep on Donner, all right? They have some pretty good stuff out there. Didn't do quite as well with the volume test. I think that's mainly from the rim. This rim is mad loud if you're doing shots. But the pad scored well overall with a 80.940, putting it in second place. Ah yes, the good old Evans RealFeel Practice Pad. The story I just told where everyone complained that my pad was too loud, well this is the one that I bought that was way softer and nobody complained anymore. So yeah, this pad is also super duper old and is kind of falling apart, and that's because I wanted to go swimming but also wanted to drum at the same time, and I found out that pads can float in the water, but it's not very good for the wood inside of it. And I nicknamed this pad the Pad Monster. It's got a cute dog right here saying it's the Pad Monster, but you should be afraid of him. I also have the newer version of this pad in 6-inch form, and it feels quite good. Yeah, just like the original design, they didn't really change much. So this is another pad that is double-sided on the new and the old version, although for some reason I kind of like the feel of the hard rubber on the old version a little bit better than the new version. Yeah, the new version is quieter, which is probably a good thing, but the old version just has a little bit better of a response, I think. So yeah, it gets an extra point bonus for that, and also gets a 1.17 point bonus because it is super duper quiet. It is the quietest practice pad out of all of them. It didn't score very well in weight, and well, I had to weigh the old pad. I think the newer pads are a little bit lighter, but yeah, I'm not gonna weigh the tiny pad. That's kind of not fair. You gotta go with the big boy here. The RealFeel pad has scored pretty well overall with a 79.211, putting it in 3rd place. The Toneally is another educational drum product. This thing was built basically as an anti-slice device, right? You put your sticks in between these little pillars, and that makes sure you don't like slice all out and jacked up like this or anything weird. It also has on the back side, you got the stick height little chart here, so you can see exactly how high your sticks are going, up to 10 inches. So this is the Toneally design number 1. There's a few other ones. The deluxe model has a removable base that means you can play onto a drum, like you'll be playing on an actual drum if you sit this on top of it. I think this is an interesting tool. I think it can be good for a beginning player. Like I would see like a private lesson teacher owning one of these to make sure kids aren't doing weird habits. But you know, for a more advanced player like myself, it's kind of, you know, not really that necessary. Especially because you can't go above the 10-inch stick height, right? I need my 15 inches, people, all right? I love playing at 15. So obviously it's going to score pretty low in realistic feel because playing drums, you don't have all this, you know, support going on to make sure you're playing. Did pretty well in all the other categories, and it also gets the educational bonus of +2, giving it a final score of 58.105. All right, the first of a couple of pads from Innovative Percussion. This is the RP1R. I just call it the red pad. It's easier to remember. Yeah, this is just a pretty solid pad overall, I'm not gonna lie. It's got a good rebound, really good feel to it. It's got the rim, which is always a bonus. It's a pretty sturdy design. Like, it's got a little bit of heft to it, which can be good, although it scores it lower in the weight category, but it makes up for it with high scores everywhere else. And it also gets a bonus for being a double-sided pad. You just have this solid black surface down here. It's a little more articulate sound we got going on. Yeah, not too much else to say. It's just a very solid pad, very enjoyable to play on. scored it at a 83.587, putting it in second place. The Sabian Quiet Tone Practice Pad has a real head and a real rim, which gives it a realistic feel. I also like how it's a 14-inch pad, the exact size of a drum. That also makes it feel very realistic. On the bottom, this is quite different than all the other pads. It has a 4-leg system here that you can just put it down on top of a drum, and then it'll give a snare resonance if you have the snares on the drum that you put it on. That's a very interesting concept. I like it. So yeah, any pad you put on a snare drum, you'll hear the snares underneath, but the Quiet Tone Pad here, it has quite a bit more resonance with the snares on, so that is a very cool feature. Yeah, I also like how this pad is designed for zone changes, right? The edge of the pad is noticeably quieter than the center. It also has a different feel to it, just like a real drum. It's a little bit more bouncy out there than it is in the center. Now, it's called the Quiet Tone, however, it didn't score that well in the volume test, only getting a 65.8 out of 100. Also scored really bad, actually, in weight, because this thing is pretty hefty, just the way it's designed, but it made up for it in the realistic feel category. That's the most percentage. And also got a couple of bonuses for the rim and also snare beads. It doesn't have snare beads in it, but the design is meant for the snares to rattle under it, so I gave it a half of a point for that. Giving our Quiet Tone Pad a final score of 78.267, putting it in 5th place. So here we have the other one of the innovative practice pads. This is the innovative CP-1R, but I just call it the innovative black pad. So as you can probably hear, this pad, compared with the other innovative pad, it has a more articulate sound. Also a little bit more realistic feeling to that of an actual drum. However, it is definitely louder than the other pad. And that also tracks with the scoring. The feeling is very, very good. The other categories are pretty decently okay. And of course, an extra point for the rim and an extra point for being double-sided. This is the same exact bottom side as the other innovative pad. Honestly, I don't know if these were designed for the bottom side to specifically be drummed on, but it feels perfectly fine and sounds pretty good. Although on this pad, I don't know why you would ever want to drum on the bottom, because it's like the same volume as the other side, and this side just feels better. Another overall very solid practice pad from Innovative with a score of 79.674, putting it in 4th place so far. The Ahead 3-zoned workout pad. As stated in the title, it has 3 different zones for you to work out your chops. And it also looks like a big ol' happy face. Hopefully you are happy after you practice. So yeah, the main surface is the gum rubber pad. Pretty good feel to that. And then over here on the right eyeball, we have a more articulate, harder rubber. for a little bit of a more realistic feel, also a way louder sound. And then over here we have the Moon Gel. And this is obviously a lot quieter, but also has barely any rebound at all compared to the other parts. So the Moon Gel will help you really develop the chops because you have to stroke everything out to play on this one. And on the bottom side of the pad, there's a couple tone holes cut out for extra resonance. This big one is like on where the nose would be of the face. There's just some extra resonance for your main gum rubber, and there's also another hole cut out over the hard rubber. So this pad is created with the educational mindset, right? You have all the different feels, you know, the different playing styles, and also you want to work on your playing zones with these little areas here. So it gets a 2-point bonus in education and did pretty well in everything else as well, scoring a nice solid 77.861, which puts it in 7th place overall. This is the Ahead S hoop, and despite the name, the hoop is not in the shape of an S, it's in the shape of an O. And I am a big fan of the way this pad feels and sounds. It is super realistic. Also has the snare beads on the inside of there, giving it a couple of good old bonus points for the rim and also the beads. And the educational bonus point for the extra zone in the middle, so you can really watch your beads of the stick, make sure you're not drifting out of the center. And a little bonus for color and design because you can get a few different options here. Now, while this pad does score really well in realistic feel, it does not do so well in the other categories. It is quite loud. And it is also one of the heaviest snare pads we have. This thing is real girthy. So because of those things, it scores kinda mid. We're in 9th place with a 76.195. I hate that it scored that low. Who made this system up anyways? Here we have the original Invader pad. I bought this all the way back in 2008 after those Banished Beyond videos came out with him playing on this. So I don't believe Offworld makes this exact pad anymore, but it is quite similar to the V3 model, so that's what I'm using for the pricing. So we get a few bonus points here we got the rim, we got a few different colors, and we also have 2 sides to the pad. The bottom rubber is the exact same as the top rubber. It just doesn't have the rim, so those shots are not quite as loud, or they are still pretty darn loud. And the rubber feels quite decent compared to that of a marching snare drum. Although it does not feel quite as responsive as a lot of the other pads, which is why it scored pretty averagely mid. Again, this is the old version of the pad, so maybe the new version has a better rubber. Maybe someone else can enlighten us in the comments if you have the newer pad. But we're scoring what we got here, and dang, this got pretty tanked in the rankings. Who came up with this scoring system? They need to be fired immediately. All right, the RamPad Pro. As you can probably see by the scorecard below, I really like the way this pad feels. So this one also has a real drum head on it, and it also has a real drum rim on it, giving it a very similar feel to that of a marching snare drum. The only real minor detail I don't love is that since it is kind of like a little bit of a rounded shape, you do feel when you go out to the edge, you can feel that it's a little bit curved, just a tiny bit. And there's also some educational elements built into the drum head. You can see it has these little dots all over the place, and that is where your zones are for your sticks, right? You want one bead there, one bead there. When you're in the center, when you go out to the edge, it tells you exactly where to keep them and then where you should be on the edge. And also for ping shots, you want that to be right here and right here. And there's also a recommended line for your stick angles, where exactly they should be pointing when you're playing. So it gets bonuses for all those things, and also for the color/design. RamPad has a whole bunch of different designs that you can choose from. And while it scores super well in the realistic feel, it does not score that well in everything else, because it is pretty loud. Like I said, it has a real rim. So those shots are very loud. We're also getting towards the top end of the more expensive pad, so it didn't score so well there. But overall, it did quite well with a 80.975, putting the RamPad Pro in 3rd place. The VicFirth StockPad is another pad that I've had for a really long time. As you can probably tell, it's mad old. It has all kinds of scuff marks, and also the letters are all peeling off of the title. But the rubber still feels just as good as when I bought it, and that's the most important part. So the newer version of this pad does have a rim on it, so I will be giving it the rim bonus because of that. The new pad also has the option to put on laminates, which I believe would make it more responsive, but would also make it way louder, so I guess you have to pick your own poison with that one. Now this rubber here doesn't have quite the response that a snare drum has, and a lot of the other pads have a better response to it, but I do think this one is better for like building chops. You have to stroke it out and muscle it in just a little bit more. And the area this pad scores the best in is the volume. It is a very quiet pad, scoring 82.5 in that area. Finishing with an overall score of 68.698 with the scoring system that is made up and doesn't matter. So we just talked about the stock pad, now let's talk about the SlimPad, the other VicFirth pad. So yeah, the SlimPad, this is the new model, comes with a rim and also a laminate, and like I just said with the stock pad, the laminate, it does give it a more realistic feel to the rebound, but it does make it way louder also. And because of that, it scored really, really well in realistic feel. It feels absolutely great, but it scored pretty bad in volume because it's really freaking loud. And whether you have the laminate on there or you take it off, I'm not going to take it off because it might not go back on well, but I do think this pad does have a little more realistic rebound either way. And honestly, if you want to like build chops, or maybe if you play like a bass drum or even tenor players, I think the stock pad is probably the more realistic option for you, but the SlimPad is definitely the way to go for the marching snare drummers out there. And yes, we have to score it, and it scores pretty bad towards the bottom. Oh man, I hate this scoring system, but well, it'll make viewer retention better. So here you go, 71.74. The Xymox Pad. Oh, some of you know how I feel about Xymox. But first, let's just discuss the product at hand, and this is quite a good product. I will not lie to you. I like how realistic the pad feels, and the score reflected that. It's got a really good response to it. Also has the snare beads on the inside, and also has the rim, which are all very good things. This rim also has little indents that you can put your sticks in, so they don't fall off the pad when you leave, and that is very nice. And as you can see from the custom drum head on here, I actually won this pad in SDJ Malik's Super Drummer Battle Royale back in 2018. This was all the way back when I was still Underwater Drummer on Instagram. Oh, who's been following me for that long? Oh, you guys are the true viewers, the true original viewers. I appreciate you, and I've been recording for like 3 hours straight, so I might be going a little loopy at this point. But yeah, Xymox doesn't make this pad anymore. They do make the Reserve Max. That is like the new option, which looks pretty similar to this. So that's what I'm going with for the price. There are also all kinds of custom design options from Xymox. So it also got bonus penalties for that. Bonus penalties? What am I talking about? Bonus points. Bonus points. Those are good things. However, some of you who have ordered from Xymox probably already know this, but their customer service has been horrible. At least, you know, back in the day, in the 2016 to 2020 era. I hear it's gotten better recently, and I hope it has, but there are still people out there waiting for their pads that they bought, that they paid money for, that have not come in from like 2018. Thank goodness I won this pad, or else I would be in that boat waiting for my pad. But it will get a -5 point for poor customer service, and I have been waiting for my, my Xymox Tenor rims. We'll get to this pad in a second, but the rims have been busted on that since like 2019, and they have been ghosting me ever since. And I did send an email recently, didn't get a response yet. Waiting on my rims there, Xymox. Okay, enough ranting. The scores were kind of all over the place. The feel is great, the volume is loud, the price is pretty expensive, and the weight is heavy. It overall gets a 66.694 at 19th place. Oh man, this scoring system is so silly, dude. This is the Loyal Drum Eviction Pad, made to evict your pad hands. And this is the only pad that exists, as far as I know, that is specifically designed to replicate the sound and feel of a rope tension snare drum. So that is very, very cool. And I have a decent amount of experience on the rope drum, and this pad does indeed feel a whole lot like that drum, but will also work at mimicking the feel of a, you know, standard core style marching drum or a drum set drum. So it gets a whole lot of points for the realistic feel. However, it did really bad in the volume test. In fact, it did the worst out of any pad, meaning this is the loudest drum pad out of all the drum pads that I have. It is also a pretty expensive pad at 140 bucks, although the weight of the pad is quite good. It's not super duper heavy, but it's still a very sturdy design, so you can easily carry this around or put it in your suitcase or backpack. There's also a little hole cut out here that you can screw this pad into a cymbal stand if you would like to mount it that way. And here we are back at the scoreboard. Yeah, 64.776. This is the Brash Alpha Custom Drum Pad. As you can see, I got a custom drum head on it. This was back when I had the old profile picture. The Brash practice pads, they have the most color options and custom head designs out of any of the drum pads. So they got some extra points for color and design. And I just really like the way this pad feels and the way that it sounds. Yeah, it's got a really good response, and also the beads on the inside, yeah, they sound really good, and also the beads are removable. They come in this little thing here. So if you want it to sound less like a snare drum for whatever reason, you can play it without the beads on there. Very high score for a realistic feel, feels great. The volume, it is okay. Once again, the ones that have the rim are just louder than the other ones. That's just the design of it. And yeah, all these pads up here, the price is expensive. So they're not getting very many, if any, points for the price. And this pad finished with a 72.542. Maybe I should have gave Realistic Feel more percentage of the score, because I like all these pads so much and they're tanking. It's okay, there's always the next practice pad review video that I might do in 10 years from now. I'll get the scoring right for that. Extreme sport drumming at its finest. Yes, we are making drumming into a contest. Extreme contest. So yeah, as you probably could see from this, you hit a note, it counts your note. You hit a bunch of notes, it counts all the notes. And this is very, very fun. And I have spent hours training on this. So yeah, this pad is meant for the world's fastest drummer contest. And what that is you basically play a single stroke roll as fast as you possibly can for a whole minute, and whoever has the fastest score is the winner. I wouldn't have won with that score, that's really bad. I did win this contest in 2018 at PASIC with a score of 1001 notes in a minute, and I got a free Mapex drum set, and that's the one that's back here. That was before I was sponsored by Mapex. I could have got the drum set for free now, but, well, I felt good about it then. I also have a Guinness World Record for this, the most drum beats in 3 minutes, and for that you can do buzz rolls, so it actually is really, really easy. So this practice pad here, it's the exact same pad as the Remo Pad that we reviewed earlier in the video, but there's a bunch of electronic stuff, obviously. There's a sensor inside the pad. There's also some extra foam muting, and there's like a metal plate in there as well. And that honestly makes this pad feel a lot less responsive than the Remo Pad that we already reviewed. Yeah, it feels like a totally different pad, honestly. There's just way more muffling, and this one definitely has the better response. So yeah, it didn't really get that great of a score in Realistic Feel. In fact, the only good score it got is weight, because the pad is very, very light. 100 points plus some bonuses for that. So the price for just this World's Fastest Drummer drum pad without all the electronics, that is $29.99. But I'm counting the whole getup in the price, the $159.99, because I mean, there's kind of no point in just getting the pad. If you're gonna get this kind of pad, you might as well get the other Remo Pad. But included in the price is the pad, obviously, and then you got the drumometer, which screws into a cymbal stand here, and there's also the foot pedal reset switch here, which you can do that to reset it, but it also has a reset button right here, so I usually don't use this. I think it goes all the way up to 15 minutes is the maximum. Yep, 900 seconds is the max you can do if you want to do all that. We can also do just 1 second, a super fast blast. 16, that's something. And it also has a metronome built into it, so you could actually train, you know, the good way with the metronome on. It is so much fun that it gets 1 whole point. That's what fun is worth here. Finishing off with a god-awful total score of 54.972. On to our final and most expensive snare drum pad. This is the RamPad Drum Deck. And RamPad is the only practice pad company that makes a marching practice pad, and this is one of them. It comes with this mount, back here that can go right into a drum harness, and you can wear it around in your backyard and annoy the crap out of your neighbors, but also get some good marching training out of your drumming. And I like that a lot. So much, in fact, that I gave it +5 points for marchability. And just like the other RamPad products, it gets 2 points for the color design, another point for the rim, 2 points for education as well. Because yep, we got the visual zones on the pad. And this is the only snare pad that got a perfect 100 points in realistic feel, because this thing, it just feels so good. I also like that it's exactly 14 inches. It's a real drum head, a real rim. Feels exactly like playing on a marching snare. Yep, and also the edge it's a little bit bouncier than the middle, just like a real marching drum. And while this pad did get first place in realistic feel, it unfortunately got last place in both the price, it is the most expensive one, and also the weight, because it's the heaviest pad. Yeah, all this extra gear and hardware just makes it pretty heavy, which, because it's a marching pad, that might be a good thing. Like, you want to train up your back muscles, so if it was super light, it might defeat the purpose of that. So, overall score is pretty mid, 76.367, putting it in 10th place. And those are the final results for our snare drum practice pads. Congrats to the Pizza Pad for completely wrecking everybody. Oh man. But we're not done yet. No, we have a bunch of tenor pads and a couple of bass drum pads to review. So we're gonna go once again from cheapest to most expensive with the tenor pads, starting with... So this is the RealFeel Tenor Pad, and they do not make this product anymore. They haven't made it for a while. But this pad has a special place in my heart, all right? It was my very first tenor pad, bought it my freshman year of high school, and I was trying to, figure out how to play drums with multiple drums and wearing them, and it being really heavy and kind of sucking. So the design is meant with an educational mindset for the playing zones of the tenor drum, right? When you're on drums 1 and 2, you're here, and then 3 and 4, you're out like this. Which is a very cool idea in theory, but when I'm playing this in real life, it really is kind of just a pain in the butt. Having the really hard playing surface be the, out of the zones, which is weird on drums 3 and 4 because I feel like these zones are too far away. Like when I play drums and when I teach drums, I'm usually like here. But according to this pad, this is wrong. Don't play there for some reason. Yeah, I don't know, playing out here, it just feels like you're reaching out further than you need to for no reason at all. And then also when I'm doing like crazy sweepy thingies, yeah, like the sweep zones are different than the regular zones. On 1 and 2, you play up there is where the sweep zones are. In fact, the pad is cut off like before the sweep zone even starts. Yeah, this pad is designed really just for like super beginners, which I once was at one time, but even super beginners, we like to try to play hard things, and yeah, just doing sweeps from like there to there, that's such a far distance. Like here to here is where I want to go. Yeah, I think all the other tenor pads just, having an actual full circle or half circle that's not two different playing surfaces, I think that just makes more sense. And that might be why they stopped making this pad, is because it doesn't really make sense aside from this one specific skill of playing zones. So yeah, I kind of tanked it in realistic feel with a 55, but it did really well in all the other categories. The volume, it's really quiet as long as you're playing in the playing zones. If you don't, then it's pretty loud, or if you miss the drum completely, then that's really loud. The price, it doesn't exist because they don't make it. I just found one that some random dude is selling for $185, so that's what I went with. And it gets a perfect score with some bonus in weight. It is by far the lightest tenor pad. This weighs very little. I also skewed the weight scoring from the snare pads and also the prices. Like, you can go a little bit higher with the tenors and still score higher because, it's tenors. It's 5 drums instead of 1. This pad also has a handle for extra convenience, even though it weighs very little. Overall, this pad gets a score of 60.058, putting it in first place out of 1. Here we go again with another Xymox product. I'll try not to rant as much this time. This is another pad that I've had for quite a long time. I believe 2017 is when I got this pad. I got it used off of a former student who had to wait 8 months to get it in. Oh man, what a pain in the butt. So Xymox does not make this specific model anymore. However, their new model of tenor pad is pretty similar, so I used that pricing. Although the new model does not do the triple spock feature, and I really like the triple spock feature. If you have a set of 6 drums or 5 drums, you only need 1 pad to play on either, because this one has the single spock in the middle, just imagine right here, and then you could also pretend that you have 2 spocks, a high and a low, like that. And I'm giving out a bonus point for the triple spock setup, and I am also giving out a bonus of 3 points if it has rims, because I think rims are really, really important on a tenor pad, right? That's the tenor player's worst enemy, is the rim. And Xymox has a lot of design options, so it gets some points for that. But it gets a fat penalty for the crappy customer service. As you can see here, the rims on this tenor pad are totally busted and jacked up. The spock rim is missing, it fell off and broke. The drum 3 rim is hanging on for dear life with some electrical tape. And also the drum 2 rim is a crack in it right here, and I don't know how much longer it's gonna make it. I've been asking Xymox for new rims for like 7 years, and at first they told me yes, they'll send them to me, and they never did, and now I'm getting ghosted, like year after year, getting ghosted. Though it's not as bad as the people that paid for actual practice pads and got ghosted. I feel for you guys. Well, aside from all that stuff, this pad actually feels really, really freaking good, and it got a really high score in the realistic feel. Yeah, the response of the pads is very good. And also the laminate heads, it makes it feel great doing sweeps. And on the bottom of the pad, you can see it has tone holes cut out in all of the drums, and that gives it a different sound for each drum, so you can hear the pitches. And I also gave a bonus point for the pads that do that, because that is always nice to hear when you're playing on different drums. And also on the bottom, it has these cutouts here, and those are to put it into a snare stand, and it won't fall off of the side or go anywhere. It'll just sit right in there, nice and stable. Yeah, this pad actually scored quite well if you don't include that customer service penalty. With that in there, though, it still gets a 75.351, putting it into first. This is the Mothership practice pad from Offworld Percussion, and this is the only tenor pad that exists with transportability in mind. One, the pad is super lightweight, so it gets 100 points in the weight category, but also the pad can fold up and fit into a backpack or a small suitcase. So yeah, all you gotta do is remove this centerpiece here, and then the pad, it folds in half, making it very transportable. And that is such a good feature that I gave it a 5-point bonus for foldability. Just make sure you don't lose this piece, or else the pad, it won't function at all. The downside of having the pad fold up like that is you can't get the single spock version of this pad. It has to be 2 spocks, or else the single spock would be, you know, folded up upon. The feel of this pad is pretty decent. The thing with the rubber is when you're doing like side-to-side sweepy motions, the stick kind of gets a little bit stuck in there, which doesn't feel like it would on a regular set of drums. And because it's using like the hard rubber, it's a pretty loud pad, so it didn't score super well in that category. And it does also have tone holes cut around where all of the pads are, which gives each pad a different pitch. giving our Mothership pad a total score of 71.403, putting it in second. Okay, so this is the new VicFirth Heavy Hitter Quadropad. I also have the old VicFirth Heavy Hitter Quadropad. So the newer model has a ton of upgrades from the older model. The most obvious one being the rims. Oh, I love rims so much on tenor pads. You gotta have them. Also, it's got the triple Spock configuration. And I really like the rim design of this triple Spock, right? You got the full rim all the way around the 5-pack drums. And then you have like the 3/4 of a rim around the 6-pack. Which makes sense, it's genius actually, because the rim you want to hit where the shots are, which would be here and here on the 6-pack drums, and it would be here on the 5-pack drum, so you got the rim exactly where you need it. Now the old pad, it came with the laminate heads, just like we have on the new pad. These are laminates, which, as I've been saying, the laminates make the pad feel better, but it does make it louder. The laminates like peeled up on this after like a couple of months. I've had this pad for, I think, 4 or 5 months now, and I've been playing on it kind of a lot, and the laminates have held up. So good job, VicFirth, for improving your laminate stickability. This pad, it does feel great. The laminate has a really good response, and the sweeps feel really good. I scored it very, very high in realistic feel because it feels fantastic. Scored okay in volume. It's a pretty loud pad once again because of the laminates and also because of the rims. Most of the tenor pads, they don't score that well in price because these things are real expensive. This one is $299.99, so it gets barely any points for that. But it is pretty lightweight. It also has a little handle here that you can pick it up and carry it around and, you know, walk all over the place with your pad because it has a handle on it. Sorry, I've been in this room filming for almost 4 hours now. This is losing my mind a little bit, but we're gonna keep it together because we're almost done. The Quadropad, currently sitting at number 1 with a 77.299. Here we have the head tenor pad, and it has a lot of very cool designs to it. Some very robust rims here. Also got the 3 Spock set up with this big long bar here. The thing I actually really like about the rims on this is that the rims actually go into the pad a little bit, which you might be thinking, oh, well, that just like takes away from the playing zone a little. But when you think of like a real set of tenors, like the bearing edge is right next to the rim, and you don't want to hit the bearing edge. It gets a really nasty, twangy kind of sound. So I think it actually makes a lot of sense that the rims go into the pad a little bit, because you don't want to hit here. And on the bottom of the pad, we have some tone holes as well, and we have the cutout for the snare stand, very similar to the Xymox design, but with much better customer service. And we also got a few different colors and designs for this pad, so bonus points for all of that good stuff. Now the rubber on this pad, like I've been saying with all the tenor pads, the laminate heads have good side-to-side feel, where the rubber, like, your stick kind of gets a little stuck when you try to do sweeps. So that's like the only like minor little downside of the realistic feel, although it still scored very high in that regard. But it didn't score very high in the weight category. This thing is pretty heavy. Ahead, really, they like make some robust products. So that could be a good thing if you're just, you know, chilling with the pad at home. But if you're trying to take it on the road, it's gonna be pretty heavy. And when we put all that together, we get a score of 70.541, putting our Ahead tenor pad in 4th place right now. Our last tenor pad we'll be reviewing is the RamPad, and just like the snare pads, I think the RamPad feels so realistic to actual drums. Yeah, we've got the full sizes of every single drum with actual drum heads and actual drum rims, and unlike some of the other pads, when you tune these drums and rims, it actually, makes a big difference in the feel of it. Right, that's about where I put my Spock drum on a regular set of tenors. Yeah, very, very responsive. And yeah, I tuned the 4 drum right about there, a lot less responsive than this drum, but that's exactly what it feels like in real life. So 100 points, perfect score for a realistic feel. And just like the drum deck snare pad, this pad is marchable, which is awesome. If we lift up here, you can see there is a back bar attachment, and that is an option if you want to march with your tenor pad. You will have to purchase your own back bar, or hopefully you have like an extra back bar maybe laying around in your school or something. But yeah, this tenor pad is just so robust in the design, and it is mad heavy. 25 pounds, which is almost as heavy as a set of real tenor drums. So yeah, for this scoring system, that's not good, but I mean, since it is a marchable pad, the point of that is to like work on your marching chops, so it's probably good that it is that heavy. You build your back muscles up and you won't suck at marching band. So RamPad has a few different color head designs for this, and the one head design I like the most is the one that has the zones on it. We were talking about with the RealFeel pad how I didn't really like where the zones exactly were. However, on this pad, your playing zones are just, this shape. Play in there, and it doesn't have to be precisely exact because it might change depending on what style you play or who's teaching you. Now this pad I got is actually a prototype, so these are not the exact zones. I think the idea was to have the sweep zones as well as the regular zones, which is super cool. Like the yellow ones are where you would play when you sweep, and the white ones are just where you play in a normal setting. So the zones aren't perfectly exact on this pad. I think they need to be rotated in a little, but on the website, if you order it, it'll be in the correct spot. So we got all kinds of bonus points for the rims, the education with the zones, marching, the color and design, the tone design in the pad, and we get penalized for it being really heavy and pretty expensive. Finishing off with a 75.95, putting the RamPad in second place. And those are the final results of all 6 of our tenor pads. Congrats to the Quadropad for winning. Okay, last up we have a couple of bass drum pads, starting with the VicFirth. And this is another product designed with education in mind. So you have this little mini area, and that's to work on your playing zones. However, you can work on the zones within the zones, because when you hit directly in the center, you get less tone than if you were to play off center. And that way you'll know if your zones are drifting up and down, because I can't see it from this perspective. Now the main complaint I have with this pad is it uses the same gum rubber, I believe, as the VicFirth StockPad on the snare drums, which is very, very responsive and gets a lot of bounce, which is usually good, except for when you're playing a bass drum, especially a low bass drum. Right, if you're playing a big old bass 5, it does not feel like this at all. Right, there is basically no rebound on that drum. If you're playing like bass 1 or 2, it'll feel similar to this, but anything lower than that, you're gonna have to stroke out a lot more than you will on this pad. But I still gave it a pretty nice score for a realistic feel. However, this pad performs really well in all the other categories. The volume is a perfect 100. This is actually the second quietest practice pad I have out of all of them, right? The Evans RealFeel is number 1, and this is a very close second. And the way you set this pad up is it can go into the top of most cymbal stands. This little design here just slips right in there, and you are good to go as long as your cymbal stand goes high enough. So overall, our VicFirth bass pad gets a 78.966. So this is the Ahead bass pad, the second of 2 bass pads we're reviewing, and dude, this design, dude, it's so smart, man. Like, this is so genius. So yeah, this is just 2 Rototom drums mounted onto this T bracket here. Just like the other bass pad, it mounts right into the top of a cymbal stand. So depending on what drum you want to practice for, that's about where like a bass 5 would be, or you can tune it up to a higher bass drum, and you get the pretty realistic feel of what those drum heads are gonna feel like. And another like side bonus of this is you are listening to your ear training, right? You wanna get the pads in tune with each other. This one's a little bit higher. So yeah, once you get it set to where you want it, you got these locking mechanisms here to just keep it right in place so they don't spin around while you're playing. So I'm giving this 5 points for the tone design bonus, because it's literally all tone design. That's this whole pad. It does a great job with it. Also, extra point for the rim, and an educational bonus point because it also has, you know, zone practices. Right ahead, it puts these little dots in the center of the head, just like on their S-hoop snare pad. And that way you can easily hear when you're not in the center of the head. And the great thing about this pad is it is designed to be played with actual bass drum mallets, right? Just so everything about this is a realistic feel. Side note, Ahead actually makes their own bass drum mallets, and they sent me a pair of their Chavez Arsenal bass mallets. So this pad gets a perfect score for the realistic feel. And it did pretty well in all the other categories, giving it a total score of 88.167, putting it in first place for bass drum pad categories. And if you're counting everything overall, it would be second place, pretty close to the Pizza Pad. Well, thank you guys for watching my full-length feature film about practice pads. Compose a comment below with what practice pads you have and which ones you like the best. You can also click on this video right here for some more drumming content, and have a good morning.